So we're going to spend some time talking about developing family ministry. I call it partnering with parents in the church, or even energizing families' spiritual life. You can call it what you want. But the fact is that there's a new breeze. It's a fresh wind from God that I think is teaching us to do family ministry in the church. And I think it's really cool. So let me tell you a story. It's kind of a corny story, but it makes a point. A husband and a wife went to the doctor, and the husband was sick. And he gets brought into the doctor's, and for an hour and a half, he's in there. So the wife's like freaking out because she's sitting in the waiting room, doesn't know why the husband isn't coming out. And finally, at an hour and a half, the door opens, but it's not her husband, it's the doctor. And he has kind of a grim look on his face. And he said, "Can you come with me?" So she's like, "Me? Okay." Passes her husband, he's getting dressed, goes into the doctor's office, and the doctor sits down, again, not looking real good. And he said, "Your husband is severely ill." So the wife is like, "Wow." And he said, "In fact, I want you to do exactly what I tell you to do, or he could actually die in the next 12 months. She's like, "Wow, didn't expect that." "Well, what do I do?" "Well, first of all, he needs to eat a better breakfast." He said that he doesn't eat breakfast in the morning very much, or eats that sugary cereal. That's not going to be good for him. "So what I want you to do is I want you to cook him a breakfast." I mean, he said he's pretty much incapable of cooking eggs and things like that. Can you do that?" She said, "Well, sure, I guess." And then the kids said that he loves the kids, and yet they're at that stage where there's a lot of chaos going on. And so what I'd like you to do is you take the discipline for the next year. And after a year, he'll probably be fine and you can do whatever. But right now, I want you to do the discipline. Let him play with the kids. Let him, when he comes home from work, relax. I know he sometimes helps you with dinner, but this time just let him relax. Put him in front of the television, do whatever. But you've got to help him kind of calm down because he has a lot of stress and work. And, it's not a good thing. Can you do that? Okay. And one other thing, no nagging or negativity at all for the next year, if that's okay. And she's like, "Wow, I mean, no nagging, no negativity. I mean, I kind of do some of that." And she said, "Yeah, I can do that. It's going to save his life." Oh, one last thing. Just please his every whim. Whatever it is, please his whim. And he kind of has a gleam in his eye. She says, "Okay." So he said, "Now, if you do that in the next 12 months, then he's going to be fine. And I think he'll get back to normal. And then you can go back to doing whatever you guys do in your life. But this is going to save his life. And if you feel good about that, then I think we're done." So she walks out. Her husband's in the waiting room. They get into the car. They haven't said a word. He's driving. He looks over at her and said, "Wow, I think he thinks I'm really sick." I mean, he poked and prodded and took blood and asked lots of questions. And then he went and saw another patient. Then he'd come back. I mean, what did he say to you? And she just looked out the window and she said, "You're gonna die." I know, kind of a corny joke. And the point is this, that relationships die if we're not intentional, if we're not partnering with parents. Guess what? That dies. We've got to be persistent. We've got to be intentional when it comes to partnering with parents in the church. Now here's this, and it's very important. All studies show that the most powerful force in a young person's life is their family. What's fascinating is some of us in the church think it's the church, but every study shows that the most important person in a young person's life is their mother, spiritually. Then their father, then grandparents, then aunts and uncles, friends and peers, then the church. This doesn't mean that the church isn't important. It sure was for me. I wasn't raised in the church. But again, keeping in mind that the most powerful force in a young person's life is the family. And I believe that there is an incredible movement of God happening in the church today to partner with parents. I mean, it's a pretty cool thing as we watch this. And I think we're all a part of that. And I think it's quietly making a difference in how we influence and impact kids. So I've got 3 phrases on my desk in my office, and I want to share them with you because I think it relates to developing a family ministry, no matter where you're at or no matter what you're doing right now in the church. First one goes this way. When you reach the family, you reach the world. When you reach the family, you reach the world. You know what? You could be a Christian or not a Christian. You care about your family. You could be a Republican or a Democrat, and you still love your family. You could be an atheist. You still love your family. And so I think one of the mistakes the church has made is that we don't realize the power of that. Now, again, there's all kinds of things to talk about in the church. I'm not saying that we only talk about family, but if you think about it, when you reach out to a family, wow, you're reaching out to the world because they all care about their families. And yet a lot of people wouldn't see the church as a place that helped families succeed. Number two, one of the purposes of the church is that it mentors parents. Parents mentor their children, and the legacy of faith continues to the next generation. That's huge. So one of our jobs is to mentor parents, to come alongside parents. So one of the things that the church can do, and I hope does more later, is that we actually mentor parents. So last week I did a Teaching Your Children Healthy Sexuality seminar at a church in Dallas. And what that meant was that church put money together to bring a guy like me out to teach them how to talk to their kids about sex. Now it's up to them, see? So that's the job of the church, not just doing seminars, but knowing that part of our job is to mentor. And then the third one, and I love this scripture, it's found in Mark 9:37. Jesus speaking, there's kids, parents, and disciples. And he said, whoever welcomes one of these little children in my name welcomes me. And whoever welcomes me does not just welcome me, but the one who sent me. What that says to me is that yours and my calling with kids, it's a high calling. It's a high privilege. And when you're welcoming kids, you're really, well, he said it, not me. You're welcoming Jesus. See? So family ministry becomes really key in the church, and I'm so glad that it's becoming more prominent when it's happening in this day and age. So we are getting it. I can remember when I first used to speak at national conventions on partnering with parents, I was always afraid that there'd be a really small group, and there was kind of a small group. Today, it's one of the biggest groups that come because people are beginning to get it. It's great. One of the national conventions, it was in Chicago. I was walking with a good friend of mine to my workshop on partnering with parents, developing a family ministry. And I've known him for a long time. He's an outstanding youth worker. And he said to me, hey, I'm excited about going to your workshop because, I'm really not doing anything to partner with parents and doing family ministry. And I want to, and it's a real priority for me, but I haven't gotten around to it. And I'm hoping, this workshop's going to help. Well, that's cool. And then he goes on to tell me that just 2 weeks prior, a student in his youth group had tragically committed suicide. And he told me that he and the middle school pastor went into the house, literally ripped out the carpet. The boy used a gun, painted the entire bedroom. It was a mess, so the parents didn't have to come in. Threw the football a lot with the younger kid. The children's director basically moved into the house for the little sister. So you got all kinds of things going on. And then as we entered the room, I said, 2 weeks ago, what were you doing? You were doing family ministry big time. You see, here's the deal. None of us really understand or have a grasp of what a family ministry program is, but it's not a program. So don't miss this phrase. Partnering with parents is not a program. It's a mindset. That changes it. So that means that whatever you do or whatever you're teaching on, the mindset is bring family into it. See? And when you have that, it takes away. You can't buy a program for any amount of money that's going to change the life of your church. But what you can do is have a mindset that means that it's all encompassing in whatever we teach. Okay. Now, speaking of teaching, let me give you a quiz. What is the most often quoted scripture in the Bible? Now, if we're not talking here, if we were in person, somebody would shout out John 3:16. For God so loved the world. Somebody else might shout out Psalm 23. Somebody else might shout out Philippians 4:13. I mean, the list goes on, but they're all wrong. So I know the answer. I'm not a heavy-duty theologian, but I know the answer of the most often quoted scripture in the Bible, and it's no doubt. It's found in Deuteronomy 6:4-9. And it's called the Shema. And in Hebrew, the word Shema just means to listen. But the scripture that I'm going to tell you is actually the scripture that is the roadmap and the purpose for the Hebrew people. And even before it was written down in the book of Deuteronomy, it was orally said. So it's the big deal. It's quoted every morning in an Orthodox Jewish home. That's why it's the most often quoted scripture. It's quoted every night. So an Orthodox Jew hears this twice a day. It's quoted at the deathbed. It's quoted at a birth. So it's everywhere. And it's going to sound familiar to you if it's unfamiliar, just the Deuteronomy part. Here it goes. It says, "Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. Love the Lord your God with all of your heart and with all of your soul and with all of your strength." That sounds familiar, doesn't it? Then it goes on to say, "These commandments that I give you today are to be written on your hearts. Impress them on your children." So in other words, you live it and then you impress it on your children. It goes on to say, "Talk about it when you sit at home, when you walk along the road," which would be we drive, "when you lie down and when you get up. Tie them as symbols on your hands." That means take God to work. "Bind them on your foreheads," which means put them in your mind. It even says in verse 9, write them on the door frames of your houses on your gates. So you can Google this later, but you can Google the word mezuzah. In every Jewish home, every Orthodox Jewish home, not even non-Orthodox homes, they have something called a mezuzah. It's usually on their front door now. It used to be on front gates, but it doesn't seem like a lot of people have gates these days. If you go to Israel, you'll see this everywhere, even in your hotel room. But a mezuzah. The mezuzah is there, and inside every mezuzah is the Shema. It's that scripture. Isn't that interesting? So what does the Shema teach us? Well, first and foremost, it teaches us faithfulness and fidelity to God, or loyalty to God. And that's found when it says there's one God and you're to love him with everything you have. It then teaches us how to transmit faith and love, and it's through the family. You live it out, and then you impress it on your children. It then even tells you how to keep a constant mindfulness of the teaching and the presence of God. What do you do? When you get up, when you go to bed, when you walk along the road, or when you drive, whatever it might be. When you go to work, you put it into your mind. So that's the Shema, and in many ways, that's the Holy of Holies. In a Jewish synagogue, when they would recite it, which they do every week, they stand, because again, it's their Holy of Holies. So imagine the birth of Jesus. Mary did what? She recited the Shema to Jesus on the day of his birth. And no doubt, Jesus heard that scripture every day for the rest of his life. Isn't that amazing? We can't say that about other scriptures, but we do know that this was Jesus, the word that he had heard the most and first. So now we fast forward at 30 some years. Jewish leaders were testing Jesus. He had done some pretty amazing things, and they wanted to know who is he and what is he all about. So it says now in Matthew, an expert in the law tested him, or tested Jesus, with this question. This was the big question. Teacher, which is the greatest commandment in the law? Now, how Jesus replied was going to really prove if he was one of them or not. And he passed the test. You know why? Because he replied, love the Lord your God with all of your heart and with all of your soul and with all of your mind. So he quoted the Shema, and they all kind of went, oh, okay, he's one of us. You know what's fascinating about that? Is that Jesus then went on to do something incredibly radical. After he said, this is the first and greatest commandment, he went on to change the Shema, because he now quotes Leviticus, which they weren't quoting at the time. He said, and the second is like it, love your neighbor as you love yourself. And he said all of the law and the prophets hang on these two commandments. Well, what's remarkable about it was he started with the Shema, so they kind of went, okay, he's one of us. But then he tweaked it a bit. Jesus had a way of doing that. See? So today we live by something called the Jesus Creed. Love the Lord your God with all of your heart and with all of your soul and with all of your might, and love your neighbor as you love yourself. What if that was our way of doing life? And what if we taught families that that should be the case? We would be not only developing a family ministry that's incredible, but we would be reaching into the heart of families and transforming them toward fidelity and faithfulness to God. And we would be giving families the tools to make those good decisions. Now at HomeWord, where I work, we sent out a questionnaire to about 500 people who had gone through our youth ministry trainer or trainers program some time ago. These were key youth ministry people, some next-gen people around the country and around the world. We asked them one question. Here it is. What are you doing in your church to partner with parents and help families succeed? Sounds like a simple question. You know what we got back? 500 answers, kind of the same. It's our top priority for next year. I mean, we've tried it. It hasn't really worked that well. We know it's important. And then they would go on and say, does HomeWord have any kind of a program that we can follow? Okay, well, we shot back another question real quick. What's holding you back? We got more or less 5 answers out of 500. It was the same. First one, it means more work, already too busy. Totally acknowledge that. Many who would be being trained in this right now, your children's ministry, your youth ministry, and you're already busy. You sort of already have a job, and now we're talking about developing a family ministry. Well, we are busy. Secondly, we're insecure. And that's what we heard over and over again. Either they didn't have kids yet. Maybe they were 24, not even married, or they were struggling with their own family, their own parenting, or their own marriage, and now they were insecure because it wasn't working out for them. Thirdly, we sensed some kind of parental resistance, we kept hearing. The parents, there'd be a parent event, no-shows. Or they were afraid that the youth worker or the children's worker or the family ministry person knew too much from the kids. Or they were just simply too busy. So again, they weren't getting help from parents or insight from parents. Fourth one, naming 5, was no say in adult education, or what they saw was a silo church mentality, meaning, They were trying to do some family ministry things, but the women's ministry didn't talk to the men's ministry, which didn't talk to the children's ministry, which didn't talk to the family ministry, which didn't talk to the marriage ministry, and on and on. So they have these silo events. And for children and youth, they weren't getting any conversation with the adults, adult type ministries in the church. So again, kind of a silo church. That happens all the time. Is your church like that? And the last one was fascinating. Not always, but again, we had a lot of people say this. The lead pastor felt threatened, either with their own life. Maybe his or her focus was not going well in their own marriage. It wasn't his focus or her focus on anything. There was little backing. Not totally sure why, but a lot of them said, we don't really get the help we would like from our lead pastor. So those are kind of the 5 things. So no matter what your job description is, I mean, you might be in family ministry. This is your job description. It may not be, but I want to give you some advice. Are you ready for it? Part of our job, all of our job, wherever we're at, is to support and facilitate healthy families. What you want to do, no matter where you're at, if you're going to develop a family ministry, is become a facilitator of partnering with parents and helping families succeed, okay? And people will say, okay, what's the first thing you would do? People might be surprised at this. Here it is. Are you ready for it? You're not going to understand it yet. Find your Kathleen. Kathleen is a woman. A friend of mine was a student pastor at one of the largest churches in America, good youth worker, not very focused on parents, but he had a volunteer named Kathleen. She was mom of teenagers. She was a connector. She was totally focused on partnering with parents. She made things happen. She had credibility because she was one of them. She made the phone calls. She had quarterly parent seminars. She developed a small group for parents. She spoke into the lives of student ministry volunteers about how important partnering with parents was. She refused to allow the church to be a solo because she was talking to everybody from MOPS, mothers of preschoolers, to children's ministry, to student ministry, to men's ministry. She even had the ability to go to the lead pastor who never allowed people to make announcements in this very large church pulpit, and she could get an announcement almost any time because she was Kathleen. So again, find someone else. You be behind it, but is there a mom? Typically, sometimes it's a dad, but is there a mom? Is there a Kathleen? Build an army of Kathleens. And if their names are Kevin, fantastic. But build an army of leaders who care about family ministry as much as you do, and then let them go. For some people, this is their calling in church. They don't want to teach Sunday school. They don't want to work on some budget, but what they want to do is help families succeed. Go find your Kathleen. Okay. Since we're not talking about a program, but a mindset, what can you do to facilitate families succeeding? Well, many of you are doing that. Frankly, many of you are doing some good stuff, just like my friend who worked with the suicide, and you're already doing some, but partnering with parents is messy. It's hard to measure. Sometimes it's discouraging. So I suggest for everybody in family ministry to keep the parable of the sower and the seed in your mind. It's the story of Jesus. He told the parable. And basically, 25% was a good percentage because some got burnt up of the seed, some got stomped on, etc. But 25% flourished. I hope that when I'm done, many of you will say, hey, you know what? We're doing a lot better than we thought. So go after the 25%. Don't expect it to be 100%. There's going to be people who just won't join in with you, okay? Now, you got to think about a structure, though. So remember, I'm saying it's not a program, it's a mindset. But what does a simple structure look like? Now, this may be too simple for some of you, but I'm going to give you 4 points to a structure. One is we need to inform parents. So they need information. And it's fascinating because Group Magazine did a study. They asked parents, what do you need more from your family ministry people, your children's workers, your youth workers? And you know what? The parents said, we need more information. We don't know when the retreats are. We don't know what's going on. We don't know what's happening within the community. So this is a chance for you to inform parents. You can do it online. It's easy. You can create a newsletter if you want. Newsletters work. HomeWord has something called the Youth Culture Blog. And today people take the Youth Culture Blog, they send it out. So they're not only giving them information about the ministry with kids, or the family ministry or events or things like that, but they're also giving them some good quality information. It doesn't have to be just our stuff, but you can create some pretty cool information pieces that go out to the parents. Make it readable. Don't make it boring and don't make it ugly, okay? You can have parent nights. Now, some people have said that parent nights don't work, but I think they do if we put some time and energy into it. What I say about parent nights is, sure, make sure that they know the people who are working with your kids, make sure that they know what's going on with families, but at the same time, also make it fun and enjoyable. This is going to sound crazy, but don't just put out potato chips and, some kind of weird fruity drink. Chocolate dipped strawberries, cool coffees, whatever it may be. Let them see that you really affirm them and empower them in a big way. So do parent nights, do them a couple times a year, and make it so special that they know that if they missed it, they're going to really miss something great. Maybe even have a game night. Sometimes you bring kids into the parent night thing and you have some good interaction. We started teaching 20 minutes on some kind of a topic, and it was topics that parents were interested in. Guess what? The parents ended up showing up, but your first meeting may not be so great. Community awareness, information on community awareness. What if in your community something really cool is happening? Maybe it's on how to create a media safe home, and it's not at your church, but it's done through the community. It's done at another church. Give them that awareness. So now they look to you to get some of that info. Again, as well as things like the schedule, the calendar. I mean, if your kids are going away at camp in the summer, parents should know pretty early because they're making their own decisions. So information. Secondly, assist parents. So look at your job as assisting parents. This isn't necessarily a full-time job, but it's assisting parents. How do you do that? Well, I think you do special seminars. Parents will tend to come to a seminar a lot more than they will a whole group. I love classroom stuff, and I love the 12-week series. In today's world, it's hard to get a 12-week series going. You can, but a special seminar. Just this last weekend, I did a Teaching Your Children Healthy Sexuality Parenting seminar at a church. I preached at the church. The week before, it was Doing Life with Your Adult Children, marriage conference, whatever it might be. So churches today are doing seminars. It doesn't have to be ours. And sometimes it can be best when it's from someone in your church. We used to bring in a woman every year. She was an OBGYN, and she would have the sex talk for parents and sex talk about kids. And you know what? She filled the room because she was awesome, and she was also free because she went to our church. So find ways to get information across to parents. Figure it out. There's lots of great ways. Another one is counseling service. So family counseling resource. Now, you don't have to do the family counseling, but what's the resource? What if a child has an eating disorder, or they're cutting themselves, or maybe they're suicidal, or there's just some scary things going on, or marriage conflict? I hope that you have a family counseling resource that comes from your church so that they can easily call or find, even do it online. And all of a sudden they're looking at the church. So what you're doing is you're assisting parents. A library of resources. All kinds of things. You can create a library of books and resources and blogs and things like that, and all of a sudden they come to you for help and advice. In fact, somebody told me that their website at their church is pretty much dead, except for when people are looking to see when the time of the church services are. Except they've got a really vibrant library of resources on a website. They are borrowing some of the HomeWord stuff. I'm sure they're borrowing other people's stuff. And so people are coming through with that, even putting little videos on of training. I did a training for them on something just recently on energizing your family's spiritual life, and I gave some ideas, and it was like 2.5 minutes. So what they're doing is creating little short form videos. That's a good thing to do. They're assisting parents. How about encouraging parents? Number 3. Do you have a ministry where you just encourage parents? I mean, I didn't think this was a big deal until I had kids. Once I started having kids, I went, wow, this is hard. And so I found that if I could just encourage parents, so write them a note. Hey, I was just with your son. I was just with your daughter. They're awesome. You guys are doing a great job. Thanks for allowing me to be in their life. And all of a sudden now they're coming alongside you. Plus they're not getting any notes about their kid. Plus their kid's probably driving them crazy at home. See? And then affirm them when you can. So maybe you're able to say, Lisa is such a servant. And then I noticed at the parents' event, you helped put the chairs away. I can see where Lisa gets it. Well, you just affirm them and affirm their kid. See, go to kid events. I mean, that's a big deal. But sit with the parents. You can learn so much. And as I got older, I realized that by sitting with the parents, they started asking me questions and we developed a relationship. And then I always let the kids know that I was there to see them. See, so that's a big deal. And let them know that you're not the competition, because frankly, I found this with my own kids. I thought I was going to be the cool and groovy. By the way, I'm trying to bring back the word groovy, so if you use it, way to go. But I thought I was going to be the cool and groovy parent because my kids would think I was cool because I had a background working with kids. Oh, absolutely not. My youth workers, the children's ministry people, they were so much cooler and groovier in my kids' mind. But it was important for me to know that they were not replacing me. And, in many ways, our people didn't have to say that to us, but I have found that many times just to say, I'm not your competition. I'm trying to help you guys improve. That's a big deal to parents. And then lastly, involve parents. So again, we're talking about structure. Are you involving parents? I was oftentimes asked in the public school with my kids to join parent events. So my kids, I have all daughters, no hormones or drama in our life. But our daughters were gymnasts and cheerleaders. So guess what? They wanted all parent support. So I can remember when our kids were cheerleaders, they said, all parents must come to this meeting. Guess what? We came. Okay, church says that and we don't do it. And every parent involved. So I ended up being the guy who helped raise money for the cheerleaders thing, okay? What's crazy about that was in doing that, I found that I got engaged. Well, why don't we do that with our own parents within the church? Do we give them something to do? It's so key that they can be involved. And it may not be that they're going to teach Bible study. You may not even want them teaching Bible study. But what you can realize is that they can help drive, or they can help make cookies, or they can do things. And when they get involved, people support what they help create. Another idea is to do a parent advisory committee. So I would say if you're in children's ministry or youth ministry, make sure you have a parent advisory committee. It's not the gripe session. It's what can we do to make this better and get their input, because people support what they help create. And then, have parent-kid events. If we're really serious about developing a serious family ministry, then we want kids and parents to enjoy each other. I found that sometimes we would do a parent-kid event, and it was the only time they had fun. And retreats, mission experiences, learning experiences. Unfortunately, too many times we send the kids off, we send the adults off, and what we really want to do is have families come together. So those are 4 simple ways of looking through structure. Okay, now let's move to developing family ministry values. I think every family ministry, every church needs some values. And I think it becomes much more successful when the entire church buys into it. So I've seen churches that do some great things with family and parent values, but they don't include the entire church. The churches that have these as their values, they become key. So what are some values? Let me give you the HomeWord values. And I know churches that actually just take those. The essence of creativity is the ability to copy, but I also know ones that have enhanced these greatly. First of all, for us, strong marriages. So when you're looking at a family ministry, strong marriages. Confident parents. Now make sure that confident parents include single and blended people as well, because they're parents and they're as much parents as anybody else. Empowered kids. Now I think you're empowering your kids both spiritually and in other ways through the church and through home, and then healthy leaders. So I want to take each one of those, make some comments on them, and then we'll move on. So strong marriages. Okay. Now again, what you are doing is you're going to find the resources to help marriages become strong and stronger. I hope that your church is thinking about this. There's other sessions where we talk about this in greater detail, but find a philosophy. I don't care what the philosophy is, just make it a strong marriage philosophy. I happen to like the book called Married People by Ted Lowe and Doug Fields because it gives you a good philosophy. I've said in many of the sessions that the 1% initiative is key for me. That means that if we could drop the divorce rate by 1%, that we will affect 1.5 million kids. So I wake up in the morning thinking about kids, not necessarily adults, even though I'm in family ministry. But the best way to help kids for me is to help the marriages and help the parenting. So what we do with that in terms of strong marriages is we begin to think about a philosophy to keep parents having strong marriages. You start when kids are young. Now, how do I know if I'm in love? Talking about the purity code. Then having a great getting ready for marriage session, okay? Make it fun, make it enjoyable, show a quick video. Here's a video that I really like. It's called Hinting is Not a Form of Communication. And it's from our Getting Ready for Marriage communication videos, but I love this. It's not very long. Here, watch this.
Yeah, he's taking me out to dinner and then to the ballet. Mm-hmm. Oh, that's him. I gotta go. Okay, bye. Come in.
I got General Chang's. Why are you all dressed up?
Did you forget what today is?
No, I did not. It's the anniversary for our first date. Thought we could eat Chinese and watch a movie just like a year ago.
No. We're going out to a nice dinner and then to the ballet.
Why would I want to go to the ballet?
Because that's what I told you I wanted to do, Eugene.
You did?
Yes? Why do you think I kept hinting about men in tights?
I thought you wanted to watch Robin Hood.
Oh, I don't feel like you ever understand me.
Hinting is not a superior form of communication. Okay. Maybe you can help me understand your language better.
Okay. Remember last week when I said the daisies in the park gave me goosebumps?
Yeah?
You were supposed to bring me flowers.
Okay.
Or yesterday when I was trying to scratch that itch.
Yeah?
I wanted a back rub.
Oh, you mean...
Just a back rub. All right. I guess I could be a little bit more direct sometimes. I just like when you pick up on things and I don't have to spell them out for you. It is kind of sweet that you remembered what we did on our first date.
So, is there anything else we need to talk about?
No, that's it.
Nothing at all?
No, there isn't.
Good.
Eugene!
Oh, come on!
Then we move to the first few years of marriage and building a foundation, okay? Refreshing your marriage, creating an intimate marriage. But what I'm saying is there are different topics at different age levels. Even empty nest is a biggie, okay? Now, a good ministry in family ministry is going to eventually have marriage mentoring. They're going to have at least a yearly conference, either at their church if it's big enough, or go to somebody else's conference. Today you can do virtual conferences. HomeWord just started the Refreshing Your Marriage virtual, and that's something that people can do. We're doing one in Michigan here coming up. Seminars, small groups, counseling. So when you put all that together, that's a lot. So you start small if you're not doing it, but that's developing the marriage side to the family ministry. Okay, and what's fascinating when I think about it, HomeWord is one of the largest providers of parenting seminars, but we also do marriage seminars. Guess what? We actually get more people coming to the marriage side than we do to the parent side. We have more parent seminars, but they come to the marriage side big time because there's that felt need. Now, how about confident parents? Same thing. You got to become a resource person. So become a parent resource person. What are the resources that you can find that you can put in front of people? For example, for me, on my phone, I have the parent queue. And the parent queue just happens to be something I love. I love what Reggie Joyner has done. I love Kristen Ivy and what she's done with It's Just a Phase. And so I keep the parent queue, and I always tell parents, hey, take the parent queue. There's blogs, there's videos, there's so many good things on that, okay? And so again, I want to be a resource person, and I have my favorite resources. Also put on parent seminars and parent conferences. I mean, in some ways, this is easier to do than some of the marriage stuff, but what are the topics? People support what they help create. So ask people, what are the topics you want? Okay. My favorites are creating a media safe home. Okay. Teaching your children healthy sexuality. Energizing your family's spiritual life is a big one. Building healthy morals and values. Understanding your teen. And then my new favorite one is doing life with your adult children. Now, obviously, all of those are HomeWord ones. But these are the ones that people keep asking for. And so, again, find the topics that are meaningful to parents. So don't do a topic that's not meaningful to parents. Find the topics that they want. People support what they create. See what I'm saying? Again. And then you find the parent coaching, small groups, family counseling, even doing rites of passage experiences for parents with their kids. That's a cool thing. Okay. So now we look at empowered kids. So we've talked about strong marriages, confident parents. Now we're going to look at empowered kids. Here's an interesting one about kids. It's on Faith Conversations, and it's one of the things that's a stain in family ministry, youth ministry, children's ministry. But pretty much the statistic switches around by how or who says it, but 65% of people are leaving the church by the time they graduate from high school. That's terrible. And we don't totally know everything about it, but that's the age. They're gone. But hear this, and this is a study done out of Ventura, California. It's a study done out of Fort Worth, Texas. They both come together. They're saying that there could be a 300% better chance that kids will stay in the church, keep their faith, if they have faith conversations at home. So how do you empower kids? Apparently, you're going to have faith conversations at home. So offer parents resources to have those faith conversations, but be thinking about kids that you want them to be empowered. For example, we've got a book called Faith Conversations. And it's not a book about how to have faith conversations. It's a book of faith conversations. I think there's 152 of them. One is on prayer. And this one goes something like this. Regina Hammond has been praying about this, and she believes she can win the lottery in Colorado. I mean, it's kind of random, right? You're saying, oh, I thought you were going to teach about prayer. What had happened was, in this story, is Regina Hammond had won $50,000, and then the next year she won $100,000 in the Colorado lottery. And she said prayer had paved her way to riches. And so because she prayed, she now believes that she can win the multi-million-dollar prize. And so prayer is what did that. And then that was in the Denver Post. So I took it out of the Denver Post. Well, with kids, you say, how many of you believe, you have three options, that Regina Hammond is going to win the lottery? There'll be kids who will raise their hand because of prayer. There'll be kids who will say absolutely not, and then most of the kids will be undecided. And now you begin teaching from that story and listening to them, and then you teach them, does God always answer prayer? And what does the scripture say about prayer? And so you're using it to empower them to have the conversations. You see, I think the church and the home is the place that would be much safer to have some of those kind of conversations. Does God heal everybody when you pray for this? No. I mean, we prayed for Aunt so-and-so, and she died of cancer still. So then what you're trying to do is help kids be empowered to deal with their own prayer life on ways that are, very proper. How about empowering kids with teaching them the purity code? Now, again, in other sessions, we talk more about this, but the purity code. So you teach them, in honor of God, my family, my future spouse, I commit to sexual purity. But what do you do for a 3 to 5-year-old? Well, there's stages of sexuality. And actually, for a 3 to 5-year-old, you can teach them a lot. God made your body. God made boys and God made girls. Teach them the private parts. Okay. 6 to 9, maybe you would add some of that stuff, as well as add, because this is a time when there's a lot of child sexual assaults. So maybe you would teach them by reading a book. HomeWord has the books if you want to look at them. But read a book. And in this book, there's a paragraph that says, nobody has the right to touch you inappropriately. And if they do, tell someone that you love right away and tell that other person to stop. You can tell mommy or daddy. You can tell grandma or grandpa. See, that's 6 to 9. Okay. At 14, that's a big age. But even 10 to 14 is a big age. That's when you teach the purity code. That's when you talk about most anything. And then by the time they're 14, you talk about everything. See. One other one about, and I love this aspect about empowering kids, is help parents celebrate rites of passages. The Jews, they have bar mitzvah and bat mitzvah, and that's a big deal. It's a rite of passage, see. We don't have that. HomeWord has a program. About 25,000 people are going through it right now. It's called Pass It On. And Jeremy Lee and I wrote a book together called Pass It On. And so we take every age group. And at kindergarten, for example, there's an invitation to generosity. Okay. And so you don't just teach them, but you have one time a year when they're in kindergarten where you actually do something generous, and they actually help create it. I have a good friend in Nashville where Jeremy is who wanted to get blankets to poor people. And so they went to Walmart, they bought a bunch of blankets. I think it cost them $150. You could do this for free, but this cost them $150. Walmart gave them a 20% discount. Yay. And they actually took the blankets and they went with a ministry instead of just going into the inner city, which would be somewhat dangerous for a kindergartner. But the whole family went, they passed out blankets. And then I happened to see them, and the little kindergartner had one blanket in his room and was so proud of learning about generosity. 2nd grade. So what do you do in 2nd grade? You learn how to read, right? So that's when you give your 2nd grader a Bible. And maybe you have a dinner with people who are important in his life, and they share one verse. And then for her, for her, then you challenge them to read one sentence. I'm not talking about a whole Bible, but one sentence a day, because what you're doing is you're getting the mindset and the discipline ready for them to continue. Okay, middle school, what do? You do a purity code weekend and getaway. Of course, you have it for every age. What do you do at 18, or what do you do at their senior year? Manhood ceremony, womanhood ceremony. Those are so cool. So again, that's empowering kids to make right and wise decisions. It's empowering the family to do that together. And the last one is healthy leaders. Okay. We want to be constantly thinking about the spiritual and relational health of our leaders. Healthy leaders help inspire families to do the same. Unhealthy leaders don't help those families do the same. So again, part of our ministry, a family ministry, should be focused on those healthy leaders and helping your leaders become more healthy. So not only just asking them to do stuff and be involved in things, but really beginning to speak into their life. I think they have to become a priority, just like Jesus had a priority of his disciples, and then others. I think we actually have to be thinking about those leaders and how we can help them become healthy, and at the same time, us become healthy too. Anyway, that's just an overview of partnering with parents, of developing a family ministry. I think you take this and what can you do to kind of tweak it and cut it up, maybe take one idea and implement it in your church ministry. So there you go. If you have any questions, as always, you can call HomeWord and connect with us. We'd love to help you with it. Okay, there you go.